Good morning, Voorhees College family. I am so delighted to greet you and welcome you to a very special Lyceum Series program today as we observe breast cancer awareness and domestic violence awareness. Two certainly issues that must be confronted and addressed. And I'm delighted that the Voorhees College family is engaged in addressing and providing information and advocacy for breast cancer and domestic abuse and domestic violence. And so I greet you to our 10th president, Dr. Ronnie Hopkins, to his cabinet, to our faculty, staff, and students. It is an honor to host this Lyceum series, and even more so to bring up our very special guest, and I'll bring her up in just a moment, who is a graduate of Voorhees, Dr. Coletta Orr. But I do want you to take just a quick minute, a look at this PSA. I am so delighted today to welcome back to the Voorhees family, one of our own, Dr. Coletta Orr, who is a 2002 graduate with a bachelor's degree in biology. She has a master's in public health and has a doctorate in public health as well. She is a trained cancer research specialist and is the author of Cancer Doesn't Always Win, a comprehensive guide to beating breast cancer and ovarian cancer. Dr. Orr, we are so delighted to have you here with us today and to help us to inform our Voorhees campus and public on breast cancer, research, signs, and what we should be doing as we bring awareness. So welcome back to Voorhees.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be back. This was just a great opportunity for me to come back and reconnect with my dear alma mater. And thank you so much for having me.
Well, we appreciate you. Thank you to Ms. Stephanie Klutz for reaching out to you as well. So tell us, just give us a little bit about your Voorhees experience, and then I want you to talk about your research. What sparked your interest in going into cancer research, and talk about some of the things that you've done and the book that you've written.
Okay, great. Okay, so my experience with Voorhees was like premier. It definitely drove my career to the levels that I was able to achieve. I had such a great, strong department in the science division. The science chair at the time had me doing several summer internships that definitely sparked my interest in research. I participated in research projects on campus and did collaboration with other colleges while I was at Voorhees. So that experience alone, getting me engulfed in seeing what research was all about, really helped me to prepare for the next level.
Well, that is great. So from your graduation from Voorhees, tell us what career path did you take?
Okay. After graduation, I went to grad school, Georgetown University. So going to Georgetown, I was very prepared from coming from Voorhees because of the internships, because my hands were already trained prior to going to Georgetown School of Medicine it made me competitive and made me, on par with my peers. So I went to Georgetown University where I studied molecular genetics and epidemiology. So I studied tumor biology on a molecular level. And from there, I went to the National Cancer Institute to go deeper into research, to learn more about, and that's when I developed my skills for breast and ovarian cancer, because it started out at breast cancer and then it transferred over to ovarian cancer. And I did that for, I worked with the federal government for about 8 years. And beyond the federal government, I started working for a pharmaceutical company, which I work for right now. And I'm at the bench. I'm senior scientist at the bench. And I also have my business, Coletto and Associates, where I educate our community about breast and ovarian cancer. I educate about prevention. I speak with survivors about life after cancer. How do you get back to a new normal? And through my company, I wrote my book, Cancer Doesn't Always Win. It's a very easy read, very tangible for our community to be able to just pick it up, grab it, read it, and find out what you can do to reduce your risk for developing these diseases. It's not like very sciencey, and it doesn't have a lot of whole big words. It's just something you can really follow along and like, okay, I can actually implement these things in my daily life to make a difference in developing these diseases. So that's the direction that I went in beyond Voorhees, because, with the science degree, you think about, okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to do science? Are you going to do medicine? But I do so much public health stuff. It just pulled me in a whole different direction. I travel overseas. I've been to Dubai, I've been to France, and I work with different civic organizations in those countries to develop programs to bring awareness in those areas and to actually develop programs for breast and ovarian cancer survivors, so they can bridge the gap from, okay, I have cancer, now I'm in remission. How do I get back to a somewhat normal life?
Are there unique factors
Mm-hmm.
with regards to African American women and breast and ovarian cancer?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it the same across the board?
It definitely is not the same across the board. A lot of research that we've done in papers seems to find that it's a lot of social economic reasons why there's such a vast difference in the diagnosis of breast cancer and ovarian cancer in Black women and white women. But it's not so. I use it for an example. I had a good friend and a colleague that is an oncologist at Howard University. She's a Black female. She's an oncologist. She got diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. So she has the education, she has the money, she has a great social environment. So we can't just assume that, if you have all these things in place, you are less likely to develop breast cancer. So it's a lot of times it's biological. We are biologically different than other races. And that's why I always urge women, even at any age, that you should participate in clinical trials. How do we know how to treat our people if we don't participate in clinical trials and see like what works? A lot of times when they give us medication and different therapies for these diseases, they're basing their findings off of a certain group of people that participate in these trials. And what else can they do if we have low participation in our community?
So should our young ladies at Voorhees College, who were your age a few years ago, should they be concerned? Are there things that they should be doing now in the scheme of just general health care for them to help them to determine whether or not they might, have breast cancer?
Yes, absolutely. For a young woman in her early 20s or late teens, the most important thing that you can do and know at this point is your family history. Has your mother had breast cancer or your grandmother? So if you have any of these things happen, even on your mother's side or your father's side, if you have a family history of breast cancer, it's important that you share this information with your primary care physician so they can manage your health differently. The standard is that you start getting a mammogram at age 40. But if you have a family history, if your mother or grandmother, had breast cancer, they will manage your health differently. They will probably have you getting a mammogram earlier. in your 20s. I'm not sure if they would do it every year, but they definitely would want to start getting some type of some data screening done to see what your breast tissue look like at this point. So at that age, they're not really going to be doing much screening because they're not looking for someone in their late teens or early 20s to develop breast cancer, but it does happen. It's about 7% of young women in like 23 and below develop breast cancer. It does happen. I actually know a young girl. She was actually Caucasian. She was 9 years old and developed breast cancer at 9.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to create, not pick up this background noise, but know your family history.
Absolutely.
And if there is a history, that is something that should be shared uh, in your exams. So you wrote this book,
Mm-hmm.
A comprehensive guide to beating breast and ovarian cancer.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to write the book?
What inspired me to write the book? I guess I can take a few steps back because, like, really, what inspired me to go into research is my maternal grandmother passed away from ovarian cancer. Ovarian cancer is a somewhat rare. It's more rare, much more rare than breast cancer. So I really wanted to study and understand, like, what is the disease? What is it? Because we didn't know what ovarian cancer was. So that's what took my direction into research. And I know if me and my family and my grandmother would have had a better understanding of these diseases, she definitely would have lived longer. We could have prolonged life because we do not have a cure for either disease. But our job as scientists is to be able to prolong life if you can't come up with a cure. So I wrote the book for my community, something easy for them to understand, something tangible. They can pick it up, read. Okay, look, these are things I can implement in my everyday life to reduce my risk from developing these diseases. Hey, all I need to know is my family history. I can present this to my doctor, and he can use this as a roadmap to manage my health. So, yeah, that's the reason why I wrote the book.
That's incredible. Talk a moment about our students taking advantage of internships and opportunities, particularly in the area of sciences, but in all areas, and how that helps them as they continue to progress along in their career.
Mhm. Internships are so important because you can imagine. I know when I first went to Georgetown, I did 3 internships at Voorhees, and at the time I had a great program chair at Voorhees that she was always training my hands. So by the time I got to Georgetown, I understood the basic methodology of research. I understood that, and I actually had some fellow students that came from Cornell. They went to Cornell. They didn't even know how to set up a pipette tip. Can you imagine that coming from Cornell? So it prepares you so much, and that's what they want to see. They don't care. Georgetown doesn't care. George Washington University, they don't care where you came from. They care about the numbers. They want to see what your GPA was. They're not looking at where you came from. They're looking at numbers. They're not pulling, that. So when they see that you have the grades and they see that your hands are trained, that you're gonna do their department some good and some benefit, they want you. They want you. And I had no issue in my training from Voorhees. I was able to put that on my resume to go to the federal government. They knew I was trained. I started getting trained. I was like 18, 19. I've been being trained for a long time. And that made my application more, plausible. And I got the position just like that. I never had a problem getting a research position because of my training that I received at Voorhees.
So you had good advisors, good good direction,
Absolutely.
strategic planning to
Mm-hmm.
help you navigate. So that you were very intentional
Mm-hmm.
about the things that you wanted to do, and that's what we want our students to be intentional about their career path or career pathways, if you will, with that. So to help us to understand about the research of cancer now, where are we? Are we making any progress? What has taken place in your sphere as it relates to cancer cures, as well as early detection and discovery?
Okay. In regards to cures, like for me with breast cancer, the research that I do, I look at the genetics of cancer. I look at everything that has to do with the genetics of breast cancer and ovarian cancer. That's my forte. But when it comes to where we at with finding a cure, we're still making great progress, because I even saw a slide that you had earlier at the beginning of the program that we have 3.8 million breast cancer survivors in the United States. Once upon a time, breast cancer was almost an automatic death sentence. So women are living longer. I actually had a conversation with a colleague maybe last year, and we was just talking about the numbers with breast cancer, and they seem to want to compare breast cancer to almost diabetes, because so many women develop this disease and live long and healthy lives beyond being diagnosed. So we are making good strides in breast cancer, because we have a whole lot of survivors. Um, and in regards to prevention, we still have the same screening mechanisms in place with a mammogram, but now they have added a component called a digital mammogram, and it's much more clear because it's digital. As when you get a normal mammogram, this looks like a film. Like if you got a broken leg, a broken arm, you know how it looks foggy. If they can see a tumor through that fog, great. But if it's a very small tumor, it would be great to do a digital mammogram because it's much clearer.
So there are other careers as it relates to cancer research, perhaps outside of medical,
Mm-hmm.
uh, um, digitization,
Mm-hmm.
um, and other aspects. Can you talk about careers in cancer
Mm-hmm.
research, please?
Absolutely. Even like when you say in research, you have to be plugged into some science component somehow. So if, say for instance, if you work for a pharmaceutical company and you don't want to be at the bench, you don't want to do like bench research, we need we need educated African Americans that understand the science behind this and that can be a liaison to our community, because our community, we don't trust the science world very much. So they need somebody like myself and some of my other colleagues that can speak to what the benefit of a clinical trial is. So you don't have to be at the bench. You're doing more. That's more the public health side of it. You're
Hmm.
dealing with the community. You being that bridge between science and your community to help them understand. And that's kind of what I do, because it's kind of pulling me from the bench. I'm not at the bench as much as I used to be. I am, but not as heavy as I used to be.
So how has your work shifted with COVID-19?
Yeah, it's been virtual, a lot of virtual stuff. I have the virtual thing down packed now because I usually travel. I go to Dubai, I go to France, and I, like I said, I speak with different organizations there. But since COVID hit, we can't really travel, and I usually host events to bring awareness for breast and ovarian cancer throughout the United States yearly. And I haven't been able to do that, but I have been doing virtual seminars, and it's picking up because people just don't want to come out just yet. So,
Right.
mhm.
So we often link breast cancer to women, but men also get breast cancer. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Absolutely. Men are diagnosed with breast cancer, like 1 in every 2,300 men develop breast cancer. As women, it's 1 in 8. It's 1 in 2,300 for men. But
Wow.
the sad part about it with men, a lot of times, if a man develops breast cancer, it's already in stage 4. That's men aren't thinking about breast cancer. They're thinking about breast cancer just as about as much as they're thinking about getting pregnant. They're not thinking about that. So by the time a doctor determines that it is indeed breast cancer, it's stage 4. It's already at an advanced stage.
Yeah.
And if there isn't any screening for men, men aren't required to get a mammogram because, I mean, it's not enough men that's developing this disease for them to put a mandate in place for all men to get mammograms.
Right.
So men have to be proactive, just like a woman. They have to, feel their body. I know one man developed breast cancer, and he thought he pulled a muscle from playing basketball, and he felt it. He said for like 2, 3, 4 months, he thought it came from playing basketball, but it wasn't. He had stage 4 breast cancer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
Well, I tell you, this has been so informative. When have you visited Voorhees last?
I visited Voorhees the last live homecoming. It's the last
The
time I've
last
been here.
live homecoming.
Right. That's the last time I've been down.
Well, I know that when it's safe to come back out and
Mhm.
play,
Mhm.
that we certainly want to have you back at Voorhees to continue to share your knowledge and your expertise and encourage our students, particularly those that are interested,
Mhm.
in going into science, interested in going into medicine as well. And so, what's on the horizon for you? You are very involved in a lot of wonderful organizations,
Mhm.
groups. You speak across the country with regards to cancer research. So, what's next for you? What are you working on? Anything in the pipeline for you?
I'm just trying to, wrap up the end of the year. Like I have 4 more speaking engagements for breast cancer this month, and it ends on Sunday. So I have
Yeah.
four more speaking engagements that I have to do this month. I'm actually doing a virtual event next month that's geared toward ovarian cancer. And I plan to host an annual conference that I normally have in the Washington, D.C. area in
Mhm.
April.
Okay.
I will be doing that. And I just want to add that I will be doing something a little bit different. I'm actually starting a swim program for minority students to learn how to swim because my
Yeah.
11-year-old is an avid swimmer. He swims competitively, and it's just ironic how we don't know how to swim. You know what I'm saying? And it's like he swims competitively. It's like him and 4 other black kids, and it's like 78 students. So yeah, I'm gonna
Well, I
definitely.
was astonished and amazed that a lot of my friends never learned how to swim.
Hmm.
And I learned how to swim. My mom and my best friend's mom took us over to the boys' club, and they had a pool,
Hmm.
and that's where we learned how to swim. But I am surprised that so many African Americans. So I think that's an excellent initiative
Hmm.
for us to for young people and people young at heart to learn how to swim.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Orr. We are appreciative of your time. She is the author of Cancer Doesn't Always Win, a comprehensive guide to beating breast cancer. Tell us also, you have a website as well. I
Mhm.
think it's www.colettaorr.com. Is that correct?
That's correct. Hmm.
Awesome,
Hmm.
awesome. So they can get additional information about the work that you're doing.
Hmm.
And we look forward to having you back on the campus of the He's sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sometime real soon. And thank you so much for being with us. But don't go
Okay.
because we have another. I'm telling the audience, don't go. I know you're very busy, but we have another wonderful presentation coming up with regards to domestic violence. But before we do that, I want you to hear what the Honorable Malcolm X had to say about protecting women. Dr. Orr, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
The most disrespected person in America is the black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the black woman. The most neglected person in America is the black woman. And as Muslims, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us to respect our women and to protect our women. And the only time a Muslim really gets real violent is when someone goes to molest his woman. We will kill you for our woman. I'm making it plain, yes. We will kill you for our woman. We believe that if the white man will do whatever is necessary to see that his woman gets respect and protection, then you and I will never be recognized as men until we stand up like men and place the same penalty over the head of anyone who puts his filthy hands out to put in the direction of our women.
I'm so very pleased to welcome to the Voorhees family for this very special Lyceum series as we bring awareness to domestic violence. A very dear friend that I've known since we were teenagers. She has uh, distinguished herself as a prominent educator. She is a graduate of Clark Atlanta. She holds master's and a PhD from Georgia State University. And her family used to live next door to my family. And I'm just so delighted that she would come and share on something very sensitive but very important. Because as I've said, that if one student watching this series, this Lyceum today, gets it and understands what domestic violence means or the signs, then everything would have been worthwhile. Let's welcome to our Voorhees Lyceum Series, Dr. Elita Bailey Jensen, a esteemed educator and scholar and advocate. Welcome, Dr. Bailey Jensen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
We're so glad to reconnect with you and to have you here. So right off the bat, we're talking to our students today.
Yes.
That's our audience. Perhaps some faculty and some staff maybe, but we're talking to our students today. October has been designated as Domestic Violence Month. I believe it started back in 1981. And so why do we need a month to bring awareness to domestic violence? What is domestic violence? Would you define that for us? And if you would tell us in however manner you would, a little bit about your story and why you become such an active advocate and voice for it, please.
Okay. So I am going to take first of all, thank you. I'm going to take the definition of domestic violence straight from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, because I want that to be really clear what it is. So domestic violence is the willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and or other abusive behavior as part of a systematic pattern of power and control perpetuated by one intimate partner against another. And there are 5 types that we focus on: sexual assault, stalking, homicide, physical and mental effects, and economic effects. I want to start off by first saying, why do we dedicate a whole month to domestic violence? Because 20 years ago, no one dedicated anything to it. Domestic violence was one of those things that happened in your house between 2 partners dating or intimate or married, and no one said anything. The police really didn't get involved. They thought that it was your family affair and nothing happened. And as a result of that, children watched and witnessed. They grew up to do the same thing, and now it's just a cycle of abuse that's so bad and lacks so much respect, because everything about domestic violence is about power and control. One person trying to have power and control over another person that they are seeing or even dating. So that's first and foremost. A little bit about my story is I am a 2-time survivor of domestic violence. First, in high school, I started dating a young man in the 12th grade. I was in the 11th grade. My parents approved of the relationship. He was a star of the football team. I was a cheerleader. And all of a sudden, just within that time, I noticed that he didn't want me around my friends a lot. He wanted to isolate me, and he wanted me just around him all the time. And then next, he started hitting me. And eventually, by the end of my 11th grade year, I was hospitalized because this young man broke my jaw. He hit me so hard that I had to have reconstructive and plastic surgery on my entire face. That's first. I did not realize that it was abuse, and that's 70% of high school students and college students. 70% don't even realize they're in an abusive relationship, because that was my first time dating. And 9 times out of 10, if you don't have a healthy relationship in high school and no one is teaching you that, you won't have one in college either, unless someone is intervening to teach you what a healthy relationship looks like. Fast forward 22 years later, I married, remarried again, and was shot. Was leaving the marriage, wanted a divorce, and again, power and control. This person was not going to accept the fact that I was going to leave this marriage and that he could no longer have that type of control over me. So he shot me 6 times. I live with 4 bullets still in my body. And my whole mission from that was that if I could start with the children and go from the children to young adolescent to college students to adults, then I could change the cycle and break the cycle of domestic violence by starting with just teaching them how to communicate differently and how to respect each other. And I start that with kindergartners right now. And so I am very much into writing curriculums and writing books and writing children's books because I want them to see a different way so that when they go in their house and they see their parents or their older siblings or someone in their family, they will eventually be able to say, no, this is not the right way. And we start changing it that way because some people take the approach, I'm going to talk about it to adults, but I just decided to go on the opposite. I'm an educator and I love teaching. So I just decided to merge the two together and teach them how healthy relationships should look. And everything I didn't get, that's what I pour into them.
That's what you pour into. So let's go back for a minute. When you were in high school, and he started hitting you, did you obviously you kept it to yourself? You didn't tell anybody?
Well, funny thing, he pushed me one day at school, and that was the start. But then he came over to our house, and my mom saw him push me, and she just told him to stop. And I was like, that's it. That's it. That's what happens.
Yeah.
But then I realized as I started talking to her, just later on in life, all of them went through the same thing. I actually think we had a generation that set us up not at all to be prepared for any type of intimate relationship, let alone abuse in a relationship. Yeah. So I had aunts, I had a grandmother, all of them had those type of relationships where the uncles may have someone else across town. They were doing their societal roles and, playing their part. But no one ever sat down with me to say, hey, don't let anybody touch you. Yeah. Not even teachers. No one. That's why I am so adamant about being that teacher that does. One day in high school, Dr. Patterson, I don't know if you remember her.
Dr. Gloria Patterson?
Yes. She saw him push me. She saw him. And she called me into the classroom. And she said, you need to leave him. Well, that was it. How do you exactly do that? Because at the time in the 11th grade, I really don't know what I'm going through or why I'm going through it. So I didn't have anybody to extensively sit and say, hey, he has no business doing that. Not even, it just was not talked about.
Right. And you're right. It wasn't talked about publicly. And the generation of women before your generation, your grandmother's great, we don't have a clue as to how much abuse they endure. Well,
that's right.
Of course, studies and the text and literature will show that our Black women suffer so much abuse that it's shameful. But it was kept quiet. There were no police to call, and if the police came out, what were they going to do?
What stays in your house stays in your house.
What stays in your house. So it was a cycle. It was a generational pattern.
It
Okay.
was.
And so, you learn how to deal, unfortunately, with that. And then, of course, when you're married and you saw that same similar cycle, and which ended up, and I just thank God had a plan for you. God was not
Yeah.
through with you yet,
Yes.
because God needed you to survive so that you could do exactly what you're doing, and starting it at a very early age so that it gets into the mind not only of young girls, but boys too.
Oh, boys, I do both. Yes.
especially,
Yes.
especially. And so, Dr. Denson, tell us. Um, so I know your sorority, Delta Sigma Theta sorority. We got
Yes.
a lot of deltas at Voorhees College. Miss Charlene Johnson, who is our Vice President of Student Services, and Miss Stephanie Klutz and Miss Counts, and so many of these deltas who are supportive of the Lyceum series. Your sorority became involved with you, and as an advocate and as a voice. Could you talk a little bit about the deltas and their work
Yes.
with domestic violence?
Yes. So in 2014, it was actually my line, my personal line. I pledged in fall of 1985. It was my line's anniversary.
Okay.
And we just wanted to do a big service project at Clark, Atlanta.
Right.
And so the idea came up, why don't we just go and become advocates for domestic violence? So we actually called the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence, which is under the umbrella of the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, in which I'm a member. We went to the classes and we became trained advocates. Took that back to Clark Atlanta University and did a whole symposium on domestic violence. And I spoke for the first time. That was the first time that I told my story on a college campus to my own. I wanted to go back home first to tell my story. And we did the reenactment of the shooting there. I had a panel discussion there that included other survivors of domestic violence. And I just wanted people to do what you're asking me to do. Tell your story and tell it on this college campus. Because I assure you, and my daughter went to Clark, so I used to just watch. She just graduated this past May from Clark, but I used to hear the stories about the dating and the girls getting beat up and the boys, the young men. And I wanted to go back and really merge a partnership between someone that could really talk to the men. We talk to both of them and just bring awareness on the college campus of what they can do. Because when you think about control and power, and you think about college, and this is any college, even yours, when you think about a college campus, you have students that are coming from all over. So they're already leaving their family and friends. And if domestic violence is about control and power, and I'm already trying to get you away from your friends, then that's why it's silent on a college campus. Because who are they going to tell? They don't want to tell their parents because the parents might make them come home. So, I worked so hard to go to Clark Atlanta, and I'm from New York. Now I'm in this dating relationship, and the guy has started abusing me or whatever. Who am I going to tell? That's why 70% on any college campus, it goes unreported on a college campus because they don't want to go home. Their new friends feel like maybe it's not my business. And then they're not so certain that whoever the abuse is won't come after them. So then you're embarrassed. So when you think about a college campus that's isolated to this campus, who are you going to turn to? Where are you going to go? And that, so if it's already hard for if you live in the city, but what about when you're already away from your family and friends? What do you do then? So they have two choices. They're going to tell and then let the consequence fall where they may, or they're going to go about as if nothing is going on. And if you don't report it, the college has no awareness of it at all.
Right. So would you talk a moment about the signs? What are the early signs, particularly, let's say in a college setting, should a young lady, and in some cases, young men, because we know that young men too, in some instances are subject. But what are the signs? What should young ladies, young people be looking at that says this relationship is going south?
Okay.
In their friend, yeah.
So it's several categories. It's about 6. You have controlling behaviors. You have verbal abuse. You have physical abuse. You have abuse via technology. Now, that's really big. You have sexual abuse, and you have forced substance use. So let's look at each one. If I'm trying to control you, or if an abuse is trying to control you, it may be things like this. Tried to prevent me from spending time with my family or friends. Told me how to dress. It's telling me how to dress, what to put on, what to wear, what not to wear. Bought me anything that I needed as a way of controlling me. So think about a young college student that's not very financial, because you're in college. Everybody's struggling in college somewhat. And think about someone that's buying you everything that you may imagine. You're thinking that is romantic and beautiful. That's what happens. That's why it goes undetected. But really, if somebody really wants to control you, they can buy you anything that you want as a means of keeping you where they want you to be. Another way of controlling you is to threaten to spread rumors about you. So you stay with him or her, or they'll say, if you don't do this, I'm going to tell people that you did this. Spread all types of rumors to ruin your reputation. And you remember this just in school, pledging. The last thing you want is to enter on a college campus and your name is ruined before you can even do anything that you want to do. Spreading rumors, buying gifts, told me where to live on or off campus. Like, you better live in this dorm. I know you're going to move in with me because your parents are away. So now you're living with your abuser. Prevents you from participating in sports or pledging extracurricular activities because they don't want you to get close to anyone else. Prevent you from going to study groups, or everywhere you show up, you see them. They're watching you. If you go to the dining hall, they're sitting across watching you. That's the stalkerish behavior. If you go to your friends, they're outside waiting on you to come out. You go to a study group, they're outside waiting on you to come out. Nothing you can do is without that other person watching. They're always calling you, always texting you. They want your passcodes. They're always checking your emails. They're always checking who's calling you. They're looking through your personal thing. It's absolutely no boundaries with this person. Verbal abuse, they may threaten to kill you or kill themselves if you leave them. Another verbal abusive behavior is threaten to hurt you if you break up with them. Because verbal abuse is just a threat. It hasn't necessarily happened. But I'm going to threaten to kill you. I'm going to threaten you that I will hurt you if you leave me. I'm going to threaten to hurt myself if you leave me. So you almost feel guilty into staying with them. Also, physical abuse, we know. They may hit you, slap you, choke you, punch you, kick you, push you, and then make all that seem as if something you did made them do that. So their choice for hurting you becomes your fault. So instead of you trying to remove yourself from them, You almost feel like you're in a crazy state of mind. So everything that they're telling you that you're doing, you're trying to improve on that, because everything that they do to you is going to be your fault. Abuse via technology is calls and text your cell phone and check up on you more than 50 times a day. And trust me, I know survivors, and I've actually sat and counted that happening 50 or more times a day. Every minute, every place you go, you have to check in, or they're calling you. Also, sharing or threatening to share private or embarrassing pictures that you have taken. God forbid if they're nude pictures and you actually thought this person loved you enough that you did that. And then they spread all that and they share them out. All that becomes your fault too. So at the same time that you are trying to, again, move away from this person because you have a sense that what's going on is not right. But on a college campus, and I would say someone in high school too, because I always have to go back and bring it up. Who are you going to tell that to? Who are you going to tell that to? Because what are people going to do? This is the first thing society does. Your picture's out there, you knew. They're not going to talk about what he did or what she did. They're going to talk about why did you take them? So now I feel guilty that I did this, and this person is still going on doing things with no consequences. So what do people do? They say nothing. So those are some other things. Sexual abuse, pressuring me to have sex. That's it.
Yeah.
Because everything on a college campus, because you're considered an adult, above age 18, 19 on up, you must have consent. Well, who teaches the consent? Because if you're out drinking or you're engaging in drugs, then is it really consent because you said it right then? No, it's not. Because if you are not capable of making a decision for yourself because you're on drugs and alcohol, then it is not mutual consent. Also, if you decide that I'm going to engage in sexual activity and change your mind, and the person forces you, it's not mutual consent. Because you can change your mind at any point and say, I simply that, I changed my mind. So sexual abuse is that, and normally they call it date rape now. Date rape, meaning the person is not adhering to your boundary. He's not listening to your yes or no, or you don't even engage in the conversation for mutual consent at all. It just happens and you're caught up in the moment and it just continues. But as soon as you say no, that no means stop. And it is rape after that point. And there's abuse after that point. And then last, this is a new one. People don't talk about this a lot, but they need to talk about it on college campus. Forced substance use. You know, if you're coming to school, you're just starting your own life, especially if you're away from home. And, you know, you may experiment with drinking. You may experiment with drugs. But also the abuser is the one that makes you drink and engage in drug use. And I've seen that actually happen as well. I've actually seen it happen to the point where the abuser forced the poor survivor or victim was so strung out on drugs because that was his go-to to not physically abuse her. She had to be high for them to engage in any sexual activity. And it was either that or her to be physically abused. And she chose that over the other until we finally helped her to leave at all. You have to realize that in college, schedules are very tight. You have a high power major. You're trying to work. You're trying to make your parents proud. Your surrounding is new. So add abuse on top of that. And your stress level is at an all-time high where you're trying to just figure out what direction your life is supposed to go in. And 9 times out of 10, it is so out of control, you don't know where to go at this point. You're just trying to maintain.
Unmute myself. Wow, you've said a mouthful, but my God, you have helped somebody. Would you just take a moment, Dr. Denson, help us to, if you can, get into the mind of the abuser. What is broken? Help us to understand, if you will, that abuser. What has brought him, per se, to this point?
Well,
word about that.
All right, so let's just think about dating abuse right now. So you have male to female, you have male to male, you have female to female. So I'm not going to limit it to one over the other. I'm just going to say this, and I know this for a fact from teaching and just in the research. 9 times out of 10, when you think about an abuser, especially an abuser in high school, you can almost trace their roots back to someone in their house being abused. That's first. They are children that witness abuse in their house. Now, they don't know it's abuse because they don't know right from wrong then. They may feel scared because intimate, dating, marital, physical abuse, and a child witnessing that, 2 things can happen. Domestic violence is directly correlated to child abuse. And if you think about the pandemic right now, and you think about victims that were stuck in the house with their abusers,
my goodness,
and the children that had to learn remotely from home, I promise you that abuse went from domestic to child right away.
My goodness.
Some of our children have gone through tremendous trauma being at home and learning from home, and add a job loss of income, loss of home on top of that. So now the victim has nowhere to go. This child is watching that. Some of the children are now a part of that. Mm-hmm. So you have domestic abuse and child abuse hand in hand. So that's what I see. That's what I know. That's what I grew up with. And if you came from the generation like us, where it wasn't talked about, did you really know it was right or wrong? Or did you have to just keep getting older and older and older? I know for me, when I was dating a guy in high school, it was nothing about him that was going to tell me that I was in danger. Nothing. Nice, kind, parents loved him. That's the whole thing. That the people around them, they're charismatic, they're leaders, you think that they're giving you the world, and you don't know that is what's going on. Behind, I would have never thought that would happen. When I was married, I would have never thought that would happen. But I know
because you were married to a professional.
I was married to an assistant principal.
Right.
We were both professionals.
Right. Right.
I would have never thought that would happen in a million years. Yeah. And this is a person that didn't go around hitting me. So there was no marks, anything. I said it's about power and control. Yeah. I don't ever have to touch you.
Right.
Until you try to leave me. Like you would never know that was taking place or would have taken place. Because you don't see you don't see those signs. Right. But I know one thing is they see it, they witness it. It's something that's unhealed. And then when they engage in it, it's no consequences. Yeah. Starting out. So if you're not telling anyone, your abuser is going with no consequences. What's going to happen to her?
Right.
What's going to happen to her? And I'm really hard on men, but I'm really hard on women. Okay. And with abuse, because women, you do not have the right to touch men. You don't have the right to talk to men the way, because I've seen women sit up in conversations and even on TV and just slap the man or do that. They don't have rights either to do that. So I'm a real true advocate on both sides of it. I think for men, a lot of men that witness abuse and they're involved in abuse, or even if they're involved in abusive behavior in their own, it goes untalked about, really. Because men's mental health especially in the Black community, goes untalked about.
I'm sure.
I don't know if they're embarrassed or it's just something that we don't really have conversation around men and their mental health and how they're being treated. We don't really talk about.
That's another whole issue.
Yes.
Another whole show. The dilemma of mental health for men.
Yes.
Very much so.
Mental health for men, mental health for women. And then all that's poured into the mental health of a child whose whole mindset is altered from your fighting and starting at the age of 6. Jesus. Their whole mindset changes on how they should treat girls, what they should do. And do you remember back in the day when it might be a little boy pulling the girl's hair, and the teacher would say, oh, he's just messing with you because he likes you.
Right.
If that little boy likes you, he wouldn't make you cry. So I'm trying to change that mindset. He does not like you. Because if he did, he would do something that would not hurt you. Like shares lunch, pull your chair out, carry your books. But he definitely wouldn't push you, punch you, and make you cry. And then an adult turn around and say, oh, he's just bothering her because he likes her. You will set that child up for failure for the rest of her life. Yeah. Because at that very point right then, she's going to think that love hurts.
Jesus.
Hurts. And it does not.
It does not hurt. So last point, as a college, what should colleges be doing? And I'm not saying that they aren't doing, but what measures should be in place on the collegiate level to aid and assist students who are victims of domestic violence on the campus?
So have you have you read the new Title IX for colleges?
I have looked at the title
on sexual harassment policy and the new one, where colleges are supposed to directly get involved. But the problem is students have to report it. They have to report it. So you have a counseling center, you have a health center, and hopefully you have a colleague or two that's really in tune with the students. I used to pay attention to Clark, like I said, because my daughter was there. And so I used to always ask her about the counseling center that they started over there. And, what were they really engaging in? Because when I went in 2014 to tell my story, that student center didn't have any literature on domestic violence, date rape, any of that. But they also have, do you all have at your college Everfly?
Everfly?
It's a computer program like freshmen have to take. I know at Clark they do it.
I'm not sure. I'll have to inquire with our Office of Student.
Okay, so at Clark, when my daughter went in as a freshman, they had to take a series of computer modules. And one is on sexual harassment, drugs, alcohol, and they actually get credit for it. As a matter of fact, they could not engage in any pledging or anything unless they took the modules. So that's something that a lot of colleges have started.
Now, I know that the faculty and staff, we had to go through Title IX training. And we did an online module. We had to go through, read. We watched examples on video. Then we had to take a test. So I know the faculty and staff and administration have gone through Title IX training.
But you don't have nothing for students where they
I'm
enter.
not saying we don't have it. I'm just not familiar with it. We may have, but I can only speak on the level from the staff.
Check and this is just something for your own reference. Check in CAU's handbook.
Yeah.
The handbook that's online, and it talks about those modules that money and all of them, the students entering,
Right.
Clark, and if they want to do any sports, pledge, be a part of the school student government, they had to take a series of modules that dealt with sexual harassment and all of that. Because they wouldn't allow them to do it. Well, that's one way. Another way is through the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. They have resources, and those resources they will send out free to you. And yes, that's it. But the problem with this is the Title IX that I see. I'm glad it's in place. But the problem is that's not going to get students to tell you anything.
Yeah, right.
See, if 70% of the students are going saying nothing,
yeah,
and 56%, according to the National Coalition, are friends and they're not saying anything either because they don't know if they feel comfortable or not.
Right.
Saying it. I think what needs to happen on a college campus is that it needs to become a part of some type of forum or some type of class where it's talked about. Right. Because students walk around on campus all the time and they're not just going to walk up to Dr. Mason and say, hey, I'm being abused. Yeah. They're not. Because they don't know if you're going to tell and their whole life is going to fall apart. Right. They don't know if you're going to go to the perpetrator because their whole life is going to fall apart. And they don't know what's going to happen to them after they tell. So it's best on a college campus to be that listening ear and that voice and provide students with all types of resources that they could just pick up and read about. And then they will eventually feel comfortable enough to talk to you about.
Yeah. Wow. I tell you, this has just been so amazing and so eye-opening to have you share this. You've been an advocate. I know you did something at your school, and you constantly keep the students, faculty, and staff engaged and aware of that. I snatched a few pictures from your Facebook.
Okay.
And I think this is when you were a
part at Clark, yes,
at Clark as well. And I think you were a part of creating this Purple Thursday.
Well, Purple Thursday is national.
It's national.
It's national.
Okay.
And right. So each the third Thursday of the month during Domestic Violence Month is Purple Thursday, but I started every Thursday as Purple Thursday because, like I told you, it's a pandemic now. And in the United Kingdom, in the first month, went up 65% just with domestic violence.
Yeah.
Here, we went up 46% as soon as the pandemic hit. And it wasn't 3 months later. By the time we got from March to October, it was nearly 50% of domestic violence had increased. Right. And then, like I said before, add child abuse. So I tell people until the pandemic is over, every Thursday is Purple Thursday.
It's Purple Thursday. So we at Voorhees, we didn't do Purple Thursday last week, but today is.
And tomorrow,
And tomorrow, and we encourage our students. So as we close out, thank you so much. Just encourage one student who is in a bad situation right now. Would you just encourage them as we prepare to close out, please?
So I always pick my words carefully when it's about students and victims. So you have three types. You have victims. Those are people and students that are in the situation right now. They have no hope. They don't know what to do, and they don't know to just leave. And then if they were to leave, where would they go? That's the first question. And then you have survivors like myself. We have made it out. And if you make it to where I am now, you actually have something to say about it. And then you have those that have lost their lives to it. So 3 types, and I'm talking to all 3 right now, because you have some survivors that are just sitting on their story. They don't know who to tell their story to. And I want to encourage you to tell it. Tell it. Tell it to the person that's in your class. Tell it to your roommate. Just get it out, because I promise you, your story is somebody else's story. And when you put the stories together, there's power. Just tell it. Tell the story. And then the rest will just come. For the colleges and universities, they have to do better with making resources accessible to students that may not want to tell their story right now, but they just want to figure out where they are. Am I a victim? Am I going into being a victim? Am I a survivor? Do I need to say something, or do I just need to be quiet? Society has not done a good job with people in general feeling comfortable saying that they are victims of domestic violence. And I know that truthfully, honestly, because I was that person, shot 6 times, laying in the hospital when the police came to bring me the little advocate card. And he said, when you get well, I want you to call this number, because you will receive an advocate because you are a victim of violence. And I gave him the card back. And I said, I'm not a victim of domestic violence. It did not even connect with me. All the things that I have gone through to lead to that point, to say, yes, you are. Yes, you are. Not only are you a victim at this point, but you're a survivor. Now, what's going to happen now? So it's 2 resources for college students that I want to just give you. Maybe you could give them this name. Love is Respect. That's the name. It's www.loveisrespect.org.
Love is Respect.
.org.
All right.
And the other one is breakthecycle.org. And those are 2 organizations that really speak to teen abuse, college, students that are on college campuses right now. They have a whole curriculum. They have more resources than you can than you can even imagine. They have webinars. The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence has webinars. And it would not be a bad thing to just put that literature out there in your student center, somewhere where they know where they can go.
Yeah. Well, listen, Dr. Alita Bailey Denson, my dear friend for over 40 plus years, thank you. You have truly enlightened us, informed us, blessed us, and I believe you've helped somebody watching today to move to the next stage of trying to tell that story. Thank God for you. I thank God for you for not only surviving but thriving and educating. And I pray God's blessings on you and your beautiful family. And I'm so blessed to be the pastor of your family's home church.
Yes, you're gonna have to get back over there.
Until about 3 years ago. But thank you so much for sharing with us. And may God continue to bless you. Now, what school are you at in Atlanta?
I am in Fulton County School System at Asa G. Hilliard Elementary School.
Named for the phenomenal
my mentor,
historian, Egyptologist, my good friend, the late Dr. Asa Hilliard. What a great and how blessed.
Named after my doctoral chair His
Oh
wife
my,
is the reason I'm at the school. She
really?
asked me to go to that school.
Mayor Patsy Joe Hill.
Yes, yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we thank you so much for joining us, and we pray God's blessings. And we put this symbol up
Yes.
as a reminder that we still must continue to bring awareness to domestic violence, and perhaps one day we won't have to do this. But in the meantime, we continue to do that. God bless
Yes.
you, my sister.
Yes.
And
I thank you so much.
thank
And
you.
listen, I'm so happy to see you in your purple. Don't forget to put it on Friday
That's
too.
right.
Because you all owe me a day for last week.
We do. We do. We absolutely do. But thank you and take care. We'll be in touch soon.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.